Hello, welcome back to MyRetroTat. Give us a sec. We're in the presence of royalty. I was contacted a little while ago on Facebook asking if I could take a look at a vintage record player for somebody. I was like, yeah, love a project, it's always good fun. And they showed up with the record player and then asked, while you're there, could you have a look at this old cassette player, please? And my knees went weak because look at that. This is a Sony TC177SD. It's a cassette player I've never seen before, and it's got every conceivable setting that I would want in a cassette player. I'm in love, and the saddest part about it is I've got to give it back when I've fixed it. Diagnosis at the moment apparently is that it will power on, but it won't play tapes. So I'm thinking belts. I would very much like for you to join me, if you'll have me. Let's take a closer look. That's very cool. I like adjustable azimuth. Love it. Those lights are awesome as well. Is that stereo microphone? 2-level? Thankfully, thanks to Farm Boys Railway, we've got a nice camera for a change. Just beautiful. Yep, so you'll notice it just says Dolby System, by the way. This was around the time of Dolby B. Before any other Dolby existed. You've got twin, very nice looking VU meters for calibration volumes. It's interesting that the actual record calibration is not a set and forget, but it's harder to tweak than, maybe it's to stop you from accidentally bumping things. Mic and line input volumes, and then we've got various biases, and we've also got built-in EQ based on normal ferrochrome and chrome tape as our azimuth adjustment. That's a fantastic idea, that truly is. I wish more cassette players had that. I'm forever noodling about with mine trying to get it to do its job. Big chunky power switch. Right, okay, I've held off long enough. Let's have a look at the wood grain, shall we? Feast your eyes on that. Isn't that such a beautiful contrast? I think it is veneer, or maybe plastic, I'm not sure. There is a texture to it which was not that common unless it was veneered, but it's just in such fantastic condition. Cross everything. Let's go in. Okay, I should say at this point this is the most intimidated I've been taking something apart, because this is to be honest, it's not even the monetary side of it, it's the sentimental value. I'm gonna feel really bad if I can't fix it, because I was pretty confident I could. We'll see, won't we? Okay, so we've got the back cover apart. Oh, wow. Thank you, Sony. That makes life a lot easier in some regards and harder in others. Yes. Wow, that's cool. So we can see that is actually wood. It's got a very thin veneer around it. That case is in spectacular condition. Even the foam inside's good. Well, now I know it's completely mint internally and externally, I can be doubly concerned. These belts don't feel brilliant, but they're not. I wouldn't say they're deteriorating. The solenoid system, which is actuating, you've got your soft touch buttons. It acts like a relay. You put a small amount of input in at the button, and then it does the heavy lifting for you with these big snappy actuators. They're generally quite robust, but when they play up they get very, very finicky. This is going to be really fun. So you have a couple of micro switches. Don't do this, it should go without saying, unless you know what you're doing. Don't touch anything with your bare hands while this is plugged in. I cannot put into words how impressed I am. Yeah, that's right, that was running. I'm just going to see if this belt's turning. It's not. think this actuator might be playing it. Just going to verify the fault. I've plugged it in. Moment of truth. Going to power it up. That's aggressive. Right. Well, the eject mechanism works with gusto, so let's. I'm going to leave the lid open and just see. Uh-oh. That's not good. It's a little more complex. So I'll just zoom you out a minute. The solenoid buttons aren't working. Right. Well then, that's escalated things a touch. Time to open it up. Nothing for it. We can fix this. We can fix anything. What's going on here? Yeah, they don't feel great, I must admit. It's not plugged in, by the way. It does feel weak, this belt, I'm not going to lie. Oh, there we go. Oh, yeah, wow. Okay. Gentle, carefuling. Oh. Bone dry, no lubrication at all. Oh. Wow. Oh, that's a hell of a lot better. Okay. Let's take the opportunity now that that moves freely to drop our belt in now. Oh, yeah. Right, we've got movement. That's a hell of an improvement. Make sure. Right, we've got about a half-inch air gap there now. This earth screwed down to this terminal, so what we'll do, we'll just put that in place. So, just a little update for you. We've got this freed off. It's now rotating. Another seized pulley down here. Okay, yep. I'm convinced that this is just locked up. Just needs a little bit of TLC to put right. Okay, so I'm now trying to separate the core of the chassis from the body. I need to get around the top side. Obviously, I'm doing this very carefully, putting the back on to protect the gubbins. It was hanging up in this corner. Sony were kind enough, I don't know if you can see it, very gentle with this board. Sony were kind enough to put a screw in here. The good news is they haven't done it up enormously tight, so you can, if you've got a magnetic ended screwdriver, take it out without having to disassemble the audio side of the board. With Sony products of this vintage, they're a pleasure to work on, but they are a pain to work on at the same time. So everything on 70s Sony equipment is a big job. You can't just nip in and change a belt. You can't just nip in and change a capacitor. You can't just nip in and give it a service. Unfortunately, they rammed everything inside as tightly as they could get it. Okay guys, we've got a bit of a development. This solenoid wasn't operating. I took it out, I desoldered it because the soldering was not very good anyway. I think it had been out before. Checked it with a battery. You can just touch the terminals with a 9-volt battery and it will pull in. It works. Putting it back together, I noticed that with this pair of wires here disconnected from the chassis, when you turned it on, that solenoid started working again. When you reconnect it, the solenoid stops working. I look down, there's a gap down here. I'm not even going to attempt to show you because you won't see it. There's a really thin gap, and there's a reed switch at the bottom of that, and a bar that moves along and turns that switch on and off. And the two bars down here, you may be able to see those actually. These two bars here, they're currently moving completely in unison because they're stuck together with claggy grease. But they are supposed to turn that switch on and off. So now, it's trying to work. Progress.
Right, so at this point I decided to turn my attention to the cosmetic side of things because I thought I was done. The cassette deck had other ideas, which you'll see in part 2 if you stick around. So what I'm using here on the plastics, the clear plastics, is just T-cut, like you'd use on a on a car for removing swirl marks and very light scratches from the paintwork. It works very much like Brasso. It's essentially the same thing. There's probably some sort of crazy chemical difference, but I find on plastics T-Cut works great as long as you take it steady, don't go mental, don't put way too much on, and every now and again just buff it off with a dry area of the cloth you're using and see where you are, because if you go too far you can cause a thing called holograms. Basically those are microscopic scratches in the plastic. There's so many of them it gives a hazy effect that from certain angles it almost looks like the thing behind it is a hologram. As a proxy to that, basically the chrome trim also ended up with a little bit of T-Cut on it. I was planning on using it anyway. I gave it a wipe over and the chrome came up like brand new, so I was really pleased with that. And then I just used maintenance spray for cleaning up the brushed finish around the outside. I tested a few different things on an inconspicuous area and found that the maintenance spray worked well. I think the mixture of it being a little bit oily allowed it to dissolve stuff that other products wouldn't have done, and also because it's got a long flash time, which is the time it takes for the product to sort of evaporate, there were no sort of blotches or anything left over at the end of the process. I just wiped it all down and it came up lovely. I used my old friend, the old sticky stuff remover, to get that label off of there on the right. That wasn't a factory label, of course, that you would have seen in the shop. That would have definitely stayed if that was the case. It was just a tag. All things considered, it cleaned up beautifully. This was actually the easiest part of the process, despite looking like the most laborious. That's about it, really. I don't want to keep you guys hanging around too long. I'm just about to pop the azimuth control back on, I think. But in the meantime, I'm going to leave you to it. And please do feel free to like, comment and subscribe. It would be fantastic to hear from you. It's nice to know if people enjoyed the videos or not, because I'm still working out what direction to go in with it. Shorter formats or more in-depth stuff. Yeah. Thanks for watching, and please do tune in for part 2 because things get technical. See you again.